Hi everyone, it's Lehman with Lace Covered Skies. We're here today to work on one of the parts of the mini lapbook. So the mini lapbook that we've been working on is right here. The focal point or the focal element of these mini lapbooks are the digitals from Mixed Media Minnesota. This is my design team project for them, and I will link the digital kit in the Etsy shop down below in the description box. But we're going to continue on, and this piece right here is going to eventually attach to the bigger body of the lapbook. But I'm going to try to do everything for this part in one video. So as I was making this, I kept setting aside a set of papers for what I'm gonna go through with you. So here we have, well actually let me show you this first. It has hinge in the back. There's a pocket right here. This closes with this string. And when you open it, you have 1, 2, 3 pockets right in the front, and it flips out again to have this pocket over here, and then this pocket up here, and then this pocket in here, and this pocket on the side. This fabric is also a pocket. This is a vintage sheet. And yeah, so that's what we're going to work on today. I will kind of reference this as I go through the pieces. These 3 pieces right here are for the pockets in the front. So I'll just kind of stick it in there. This is for the flap. This piece right here is for this side pocket, which is going to be on that side. And then when the flippy part in the middle, the divider, has 3 components. It has this piece, and this piece. I'm going to go over it slowly in a second, but I just kind of want to show you an overview first. And here's the fabric, and here is the bigger pocket on the outside. So now that you know all the different parts, let's go through them one by one, and I'll let you know, just as an example, the measurement for this one that I have that we're going to work on. So I used a regular file folder, and I am just grabbing one right now. I did not cut it down, so it's the length of the regular file folder here. All I did was cut off the top to the height that I want, because this needs to fit inside of the mini lapbook. So you want to make sure that it's no higher than the main lapbook. Then after you cut down the top, you're just going to have this piece. And what I did was I folded it asymmetrically. So I made sure that this fold was a little bigger than this side, because this is going to be the flap that closes it. So I can give you measurements just to, if someone wants to follow along exactly. The entire thing is 11, a little over 11.5 inches. It's almost 11 3/4 of an inch. So that's the whole thing at first. And then my first fold is at about 4 inches. And the flap that's going to fold over and close this thing, meaning this part right here, that part is, I think it's easier if I do it like this. That part is almost 3 inches. So of course it doesn't have to be exact. You just want to make this side smaller than this side. So once you fold it in thirds like that and you have that little flap, you're going to pick a piece of patterned paper, which I thought I had here. Well, I know I had it here because we just went over it. Oh, it's right here. So you're going to pick a piece of patterned paper and just go ahead and cut it to size where it's going to cover that flap. And mine goes over a little tiny sliver. And I'm just gonna leave it like that because, you know what, let's just go ahead and trim it down just a little bit. All right. So there we go. Now I did corner punch, so we're going to go ahead and do that as well. I think I'm just going to leave it together to corner punch it. You might notice this red mark on my hand. I was closing a bottle that had a handle and I just like closed it around. It was super annoying. All right, so there we have that. Next, I'm going to take these 3 pieces and go to the sewing machine. So it's going to be the bigger pocket at the bottom and then the other 2. So before I do anything though, I want to go to the sewing machine and sew some pretend stitching across the top because I want it to have that look. Like that stitching is not serving any purpose up here, but it's just giving it the look that I want. So I'm going to do stitches across the top. Now these stitches down here are functional stitches, so we don't have to do that yet. So I'm going to take these to the sewing machine, and luckily I already did that, so I have right here. So I just sewed 1 line across the top of everything, and we've done this a lot throughout this series. So let's go ahead and cut these apart. And cut this last one. So I'm going to set those aside. I'm going to set this aside. We're not going to touch that until a little later. Now, for this piece right here, the middle foldy piece, we need to cut. You can make it as wide as you want. It's gonna go right here. This is what it's gonna do. So you can make it as wide or as thin as you want, but you need 3 pieces that are that width. So I have one that goes all the way to the top. I have a smaller one that is a little less than half, and I have another one that is a little more than half. You can decide the heights of that as well. I'm going to take the pattern paper and I am going to set it aside. Then I'm going to take this, and for this shorter piece, you're going to punch out a notch right here. And then you're going to put it back together evenly with the longer piece, and you're going to punch out a notch right here. So this top notch is going to have it only on the short piece of paper, and this side notch is going to be punched together with a long piece, so they're both going to have that notch. After you punch out the notch, I like to kind of smooth it out. So there we have that. And you want to make them as even as possible, the top and the bottom sheet. Because then it's going to look like one piece, which is what we want. So what we just did right there was this. This is the top one, which you're only punching the notch on the top, and the side notch, you had to punch it on both because there's 2 layers to this piece right here. Then I'm going to set that aside. Then we're going to take this piece, we're going to cut a piece that's going to be on this side, and it's going to be a long pocket. So you need to cut a piece. You can make it wider or thinner and set that aside. And then you're going to cut a piece to fit the back panel. This is a teeny tiny bit big. So I'm just going to take a little sliver off. And then you're going to set that aside. So once you have the stack of them, we are going to ink. And let me see what would be best for me to ink on camera. So this is just going to be just ink all the way around. This one you can ink all the way around, or you can wait until later to ink it. This can be inked all the way around. So those are the simple ones, right? This needs to be inked, and this needs to be inked. So what I do for this one is I'm going to ink on the parts that are showing. So, is that the correct way? going to fix this a little bit. Alright, so this is going to be the pocket. That's going to show. So I'm going to ink around this little piece. So this is going to be showing up on the front because the glue is going to go on this side. And then I am going to ink the rest of this. We're not going to bother inking the bottom here because it's not going to show, because this is going to cover it. I mean, you definitely could if you wanted to, but I'm not going to. So there you have that piece. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to flip it over. So it's kind of like I have it right here. I'm flipping it over and I'm going to lay this over the top. And I'm not going to notch it because I want the pocket to be on the back. But I am going to ink that little notched part like that. And then I'm going to turn it back over and I'm going to ink this because it's going to be an exposed edge. I'm going to also ink around the side down here. And then around the top. I'm not going to ink here because we're going to do a hinge here, and that hinge is going to be inked. So we can go ahead and set this aside for now. I am going to ink these 3 little pieces on camera because I need to show you what happens next with them. And remember, the only one that's going to show on the bottom is the last piece right here. So that's going to be this. So I'm not going to bother inking that part. This is going to be the bottom piece. So I am going to ink the bottom of this one because that's going to end up showing. Alright, now that the inking is done, we are going to prepare for sewing. So you might want to pause as I go over each one and go to your sewing machine if you want to. The first thing we're going to do is get this ready for sewing. So the way I've done it is I'm not sewing the bottoms, like the bottoms of these first 2 steps. I'm going to glue it. So I'm laying this out the way I want it. I'm going to take the top pocket, I'm going to flip it over and put glue on the side that has no stitching because that's going to be the bottom of the pocket. And then I'm going to use where these pockets are as a guide to glue this one down. Making sure that it's perfectly straight. And then I'm going to proceed to the next one. I'm going to glue the bottom of it. Just like that. Just cover up the raw edge of the one that's above it. There we go. And some glue oozed out right here, so I want to really wipe that up so it's not gluing the top of the next pocket shut. And then finally I'm going to take the bottom one and put glue. I don't technically need to put glue on the bottom because we're going to be sewing, but I want to because it's just going to make it more secure. And of course I'm going to wait until the glue dries before I sew it. So that's set, ready and set for sewing. Just let it dry for a little bit and then I'll show you where to sew it. But before we continue with that, as you can see here, there's a pocket right behind it, which is going to be this pocket. So you know what? I don't want to take too much time inking because this video is going to be really long, but I will do it for this one. And maybe I'll edit some of this inking out. So we're going to ink. We're going to ink, and then this is going to go my glue just fell. This pocket is going to go in the back like this. So it's going to go right here. When it gets sewn in, we need to sew to secure this in this type of a shape to leave the opening here. But we also need to secure some of these lines. So the way I did that was I sewed all the way around like that. Just go around the perimeter. If you want, you can go around the whole thing, but I just went where there needed to be sew lines. So I think to make it easy to remember what to do, I'll just put 2 dots here. Just to secure it where it should go. So if you guys want to put 2 dots of glue there, and then go to your sewing machine and sew about right there, over that way, down this way, across the bottom, and up this side. That way, this whole thing will be secure. This whole thing right here, the front panel. So that's one thing. Now, for this, we are going to be doing some sewing and some gluing. So let's deal with the gluing first. For the gluing, we are going to obviously leave the sides with the notch open. So that means I'm putting glue in this shape right here. So I'm going to go ahead and grab some glue. put it all along there. Now, if you wanted to only glue, you could definitely do that too, without going to the sewing machine. All right, now that that's done, I am going to line it back up with each other. For some reason, this isn't lining up. All right, now that that is done, we are going to flip it to this side and put the patterned piece over it. And for the sewing, we are going to sew like this. So you're gonna, don't close this off. Don't close this top pocket off. So like you can see here, I sewed a little rectangle. Let me see, I need like 3 hands. You're gonna sew a line, a little rectangle like that, but leave the top open. So that's the first sew line. And then you're gonna sew another line that goes all the way down. All the way down. So first a little open rectangle right here, leaving that side open, and then you're going to sew all the way down. Okay, I hope that was clear. So that's 2 things. One is to sew this part, one is to sew this part. And then the last thing is to sew, well, not the last thing, sorry. The next thing is to sew this pocket in. So that pocket's going to be sewn in. And then, so you can pause the video and go do those things if you want now. To go sew this, and then to go sew this, and then to go sew this. So let me show you those 3 things so you can see the lines again. It's just going all the way around like that, securing these pockets and this long pocket. For this little flappy piece, it's sewing a line like that and then a line down this way. And then for the last piece or last part, you're going to sew the fabric down, leaving this side pocket. So if you want to pause the video and go do those 3 things, 1, 2, and 3, then you can do that and just pause the video here. But I'm going to continue on because the next thing we're going to do is sew this on. So this is going to be sewn onto that, and then you can ink it after. This is then going to be sewn on to the back flap, and I'm leaving a pocket to be open right here. So I just sewed a line all the way around. And the back of that looks like this. It's sharing the same wall as this fabric pocket, and this fabric pocket has white stitching on its own. And then to secure this piece of pattern paper to make that pocket, I sewed all the way down that way. So that's the 4th thing to do right here. And then the 5th thing to do. Okay, so there's 5 things sewing. I'm just saying that because I'm going to shut off the camera and I'm going to go do those things. So I'm going to sew these pockets in along with this flap, hit two birds with one stone. And then I'm going to sew this part, this little flappy piece. And then I'm going to sew the fabric. And then I'm going to sew this part right here. And finally sew this part. And then we're going to meet back up and I'll let you know what to do next. All right, see you in a little bit.